Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Small Business Incubator. I'm happy to be here with you all. Today we have a very, very special guest. We have Mr. Joseph Michael Dickerson from the JMD Law Firm. So he is an author and a board-certified estate planning and probate attorney in Texas since 1995, as well as a Rotarian and entrepreneur. Mr. Dickerson has a BBA in finance from Texas State University, an MBA in international trade from TAMU, and a JD from St. Mary's Law School. He has been in private practice since November 1995. His estate planning and business formation law firm has a base office in Laredo, Texas, and recently expanded to New Braunfels in 2021. He is also an escrow officer with the Texas Lone Star title. Mr. Dickerson has owned several rental properties and has developed and sold commercial shopping centers as well. And a new title that we can add to his long list of titles. He was recently inducted as a United Longhorn Legend. I'm sorry, Nixon. I'm so sorry, Nixon. United. Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So he just received that recognition today. So we applaud him and congratulate him for that honor. So I'm going to, without further ado, Mr. Dickerson.
So the three-bucket method. This is a book and a concept that I came up with. It's a book that I wrote on how to protect your assets. Now, when you're in a business, obviously a lot of our clients wind up focused on, okay, how do I do the thing to sell the other thing to make money? And a lot of times we forget about the administrative part and we forget about the protection. We go down making money, and then we turn around and we realize, oh, now I've got a bunch of cash. Now I've got real estate investments. I've gotten all these things going. So this is the impotence of this book, just to give you that background. All right, so some housekeeping. I probably will talk very quickly. I will try to stay on track with the presentation. If you could do me the favor and write down your questions as we go, because you will come up with a question that somebody else is also thinking, but they're too shy to say anything about. So make sure you write those down so that way at the end, we can get as many questions as possible. And I'll stay as long as we need to. I've got a babysitter, and I've also got a hot date after this, so because I've got the babysitter. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Get those notes down. Now, I had this great introduction, so thank you. I won't spend too much on this slide other than these are the books that I've written in addition to the three-bucket method. So I like to get information to people. I like to make sure that they understand I'll let you do that, what's going on. Thank you. All right, so today what we're going to talk about is the main points are risk exposures, what type of entities we can use, what the moving parts bucket is, understand some of my terminology, what the dirt bucket is, what the paper bucket is, why do we have those, how they work in the real world. Then we'll open it up for questions. And if you guys need a one-on-one, if we have time, we can get you on a calendar to see how we can help you in your situation if that's what we need to do. There we go. All right. So one of the first things that we need to do is figure out what is the risk that we're assessing. What risks are out there in our business? Who here has had exposure to the trucking business? Okay. And if anybody has driven on 35, you have been exposed to the trucking business indirectly. So as you can see, there are a lot of risks involved in businesses. That's just a really obvious one because we see all the billboards with the other attorneys. So first is personal liabilities. What are your personal risks? If you're in an auto accident, you could be at risk. If you have injury to property, somebody gets hurt on your home, there is that risk that you could get sued. Contract liability. Who here has read their cell phone contract? There we go. Awesome. That's great. I haven't, because I can't get a client to pay money for me to read it. So I'm not even willing to pay myself to read it. Sometimes we have risk exposure from other people. So this could be employees. So if you have a business and you have employees, you as the employer are responsible, which is part of the reason you want to have entities, so you as a human are not going to be stuck with that responsibility. Family members. Who has kids? Who has kids that drive? Those of you who put your hands down, get ready. So your kids can create liabilities for you. And if you're in a business and you have partners, your partners can create liabilities for you. They can sign a check for the business, which you're responsible for half. So you want to make sure that you understand some of those risks and take protection from there. Now, the next thing we need to look at is what's the best entity structure for your business. Not all business entities are created equal. So corporations, who's heard of a corporation? You know, that's one of the most common types of entities. They have the longest history. So they're something that we use. We used to use a lot more. Let me tell you a little bit about how they work or what that structure is. Corporation is a separate legal entity, meaning it's apart from the owner. So the human owner is apart from the entity. The shareholders, which are the owners, are not subject to the liabilities that are caused by the corporation. So if your employee does something in their line of work and they create a liability, it's a liability of the corporation, not the liability of the shareholder or the owner. It is a very defined structure. Shareholders are the owners, directors guide the overall strategy of the company, and officers make sure that those things are carried out. So that's the three-tier entity structure. So we have a separation of ownership from management. Some of the advantages are that it has that separate liability. You're not responsible for what the company does. It's relatively simple to administer. You can have that structure where somebody else runs it, or you can wear both hats. Also, it has a long history of case law. That's probably one of its strongest benefits, is that it has that long history. Some of the disadvantages is, depending on how you structure your taxes, you could be subject to double taxation. That's not necessarily always bad, but you want to make sure that you're not doing it by accident. Formalities must be kept in a corporation. The state statutes require corporations to have annual minutes. They have certain requirements that corporations have to follow. There's case law on how you pierce the corporate veil. That's why they call it the corporate veil, because the corporation is where we first started doing that. That's how do we, if you ignore the corporation's existence and its separateness, then everybody else will too, and you could personally be liable for it. Now, in a corporation, you must have majority in order to retain control of the company. Brings us to the next company. LLC, limited liability company. Who's heard of the limited liability company? Okay, a few more. We see those a lot more. This is a little more flexible company. It still has that separate protection that a corporation has. Now, it has a little bit different terminology of owners and managers. So the owners are called members, and the managers, very creatively, are called managers. And so that's the two-layer structure. There is, again, the separateness of management and ownership. Some of the advantages is the structure is very flexible. There's not a requirement to have annual meetings. However, we recommend having annual meetings because it helps provide that protection of having your entity be able to speak and say what it intended to do. Membership can be restricted. So in an LLC, the owners can be restricted. We can put restrictions on who can become an owner. So if you and your partner split up and your partner said, oh, I'm going to sell to this other guy that I know you can't stand because you're going to be stuck with this guy. Well, if they're not admitted into, like, by unanimous consent, guess what? They can't become a member. So you can restrict who can come in and who doesn't. This is the chameleon of tax entities. So an LLC can be taxed as a disregarded entity, meaning it doesn't file a federal federal income tax return. It only files the state franchise tax. It could also pay tax as a partnership if you have more than one partner. You can pay as a corporation, a C Corp, or you can pay tax as an S Corp. Now, all of those, I'm sure you will find out somewhere in your program when you talk about taxes and how do you pay those things. I'm not going to get too far into that, but know that this is the most flexible type of entity, which is why it's very commonly used. But the number one reason I like using LLCs is charging order protection. What that does is it protects the owner from what the company can do, like corporation, but the charging order protection protects the company from what the member can do. What do I mean by that? So let's say me and this gentleman are partners in a company. We're in an LLC. I get sued and they get a judgment against me for an auto accident. Nothing to do with the business. Well, if it was a corporation, if they win a judgment, they're going to come and they're going to take my shares, and now you got a new partner, which was the jerk that sued your partner. On the other hand, with an LLC, the only thing they can do is get a charging order. That charging order is an order from the court where they got that judgment that says, LLC, if you make a distribution to Dickerson, you have to make it to the guy who won the lawsuit. We're friends. We say, hey, let's make distributions. And they get to be stuck just holding a piece of paper that they can't do anything. So this provides tremendous protection for the company and the other members of the business. Some of the disadvantages are it has a shorter history than the corporation. However, what's a few hundred years between friends? The LLC has still gained a lot of history in the time that it's been around. Unfortunately, law is like dog years. So 1 year for normal people, it's like 10 years for the legal system. It also has potential for getting pierced like a corporation. If you don't respect the separateness, you can lose your protection. Formalities should be maintained, although they don't have to be. There's some flexibility, but it's a lot easier to be able to present your minutes and all the documentation for what you've done than to say, well, my partner and I talked about it and we had agreed, and trying to explain what you did instead of saying, here's the document that says we voted and this is what we did. So it's always better to have paperwork, especially when you're creating the evidence that will be needed in the future. You have to also have a majority. This works by majority, so you have to have that. I'm going to try to breeze through the limited partnership because we don't use these very often. These were super popular before 2008. Why? Because they did not pay franchise tax. They didn't have to file a state return. So guess what happened? There's an old axiom in tax law that says pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. So what happened? Well, not the only thing, but this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Big companies like American Airlines, I remember some of the other ones, AT&T, they moved their headquarters to Texas, reformed their structure as a limited partnership, so they didn't have to pay franchise tax in the state of Texas. So the state of Texas was like, wait a minute, that's a lot of money we could be making, even if our tax rate is super low. So all of a sudden, everybody's got to pay franchise tax now. So the threshold is like $2.6 million of income before you have to pay. So most small businesses aren't really affected by it, but you still have to do the report or else they can pull your chart. So it's got to have at least two partners, a limited partner and a general partner. A limited partner is like a silent partner. They don't have any liability, but they don't have a vote. The general partner has all the authority, all the liability, but they have all the control. So they're the first ones to have personal liability, but with 1%, they control the whole thing. So we usually will create an LLC to be the general partner, and that insulates the whole thing. Okay, some of the advantages, again, separate entity. Partnership, ownership can be restrictive. So in a partnership, we can control who can become a partner. They're in very limited cases, they're not subject to franchise tax, but that's when it's purely for investment in like the stock market. Creditor can also have the same charging order protection. You can have valuation discounts with limited partnerships. So when we're doing taxable estates, this is one of the tools we use in our planning. Now, what I mean by a taxable estate, people who have over $30 million for a married couple, $15 million for a single person. So if you're in that level, you might want to just do this, because just doing this can reduce the value of your assets down by about 45%. If you had $1 million property and you put it into a limited partnership, now your limited partnership shares are only worth, what, $650,000 or $600,000. I'm not going to get into too much of that because that's not what we're here for today. And it can own a large variety of assets. So some of the disadvantages is higher administrative costs. You've got to have the two entities. You have the LLC general partner and then the limited partnership. You've got accounting for two. You've got bank accounts for two. So everything is doubled. So I'm going to leave it there. And let's talk about the three-bucket method. Now that you've got kind of a background of the entity structures that we're going to incorporate in the three-bucket method, let's go ahead and go into it. Now, I love this quote of Zig Ziglar, is success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. So you got to make sure you're ready so that when the opportunity comes in, it's not luck, it's that you are ready for it. So I love that quote. All right, let's get into the moving parts bucket. Moving parts bucket, again, it's not a entity, it is a category. Okay, this is your highest risk. This is where you'd have things like professional entities, operating businesses, businesses that own heavy equipment or have employees. All of those things are the places where lawsuits come. Now, what should you do is an entity can, you can have an LLC or a corporation in this category. So for a moving parts bucket, we try to limit it to either a corporation. If they're already operating, we kind of put that in the category, or we do an LLC for most of them. All right, so covering the second bucket, it's called the dirt bucket. As the name implies, this is where we would invest in your real estate. Your real estate here is going to be separate, in a separate category, separate entity from the operations. You don't want the operations with the highest risk to be in the same bucket as your real estate that maybe has lower risk, but is now an asset that somebody would be happy to buy, to sell, liquidate to get cash. So you want to make sure you've got that taken care of. This could also be rental properties, not just raw land, and any business real estate. So if you have a company and you own your real estate, lease it to yourself. So now you've got one company that owns the land, one company that owns the operation. If your operation gets taken down by whatever situation, at least you still own the land. At least you still have that hard asset. This, we try to keep not having more than $500,000 worth of property in a single LLC or a single property in that LLC. Now, there's another form of LLC that we've started using with the dirt bucket, and this is called a series LLC. I don't have a slide for it, but I'm going to just tell you, it is a LLC that within it, it has different series. Now imagine each series is like a baby LLC. Each series has separate legal responsibility from the other series within the LLC. So if you have 4 rental properties and you put 4 into 4 different series, if one of them gets hit, the other ones are not affected. Okay? So that's the dirt bucket. All right, so now we're getting to the paper bucket. Okay, this is the one that all my stockbrokers and financial advisors love. This is where you have your extra cash. This is where you have brokerage accounts. This is where you have ownership in the shares in the other companies, in your moving parts bucket, in your dirt bucket companies. Now, I know what you're thinking. Like you just said, separate, 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 separate. And now you've now put it all together under one big piggy bank. Yes. But you've got to realize the risks that we're dealing with, the risks that we're handling. In the moving parts bucket, the risk is internal, meaning the employees, the equipment, the operations can create liabilities. So you have that internal risk. In the real estate, the dirt bucket, you have the internal risk that somebody can get hurt on your property. The property creates a liability inside the LLC. The paper bucket does not have an internal risk because owning shares in another company does not create a risk for that owner. For example, if you owned stock in Apple and Apple got sued, you wouldn't be, oh my, they're going to come, they're going to take my stuff because I'm also an owner of Apple. I own 1 share, but they're going to come get me. That's not the way it works. The same protections that Apple has as a corporation with the shareholders, it's the same with all the business entities. The rules apply to everybody. So you want to make sure that you realize that. So the internal risk for the paper bucket is gone. So we eliminate that risk. Now we have the external risk. The external risk is the one that I was talking to you about, where if the owner gets sued and somebody else takes over, you want to make sure that protection is there. So this type of entity, we want to have either a limited partnership if we want to do some estate planning, or we could do it in an LLC. Now, what that does is it provides that external risk protection. So now if you get sued, all they get is a charging order and they just sit there and wait until you and your family decide to make a distribution. So that's how the paper bucket works. But let's see how does it work in real life. Okay, what could go wrong if you don't use the 3 buckets? One is, let's start with the IRS audit. If you don't have your entities structured properly and you're not maintaining them, you as a taxpayer have the burden to prove your deductions. Guess what? If you had that dirt bucket and moving parts bucket renting to each other, but you didn't have a lease agreement, you just said, well, look, I'm just going to pull the money out and pay have the moving parts just pay the note. You don't have any evidence of anything that there was a lease, so they can disregard those lease payments because you didn't have a lease agreement. You need to have the paperwork to back up the things that you're doing. If you lend money amongst companies and you don't have the documentation, they're going to disallow some of those potential deductions. If you don't have a management agreement and you've taken a deduction for those services, again, the IRS is going to say, nope, that wasn't deductible. Now, the big problem with this, with the IRS, is not that oh, you messed up. Okay, great. Let me fix it so it doesn't get worse. They have 3 years backlog. They actually have more, but they have to get on record within 3 years because that's the statute of limitation. So usually you're right around 3 years where they say, oh, we're auditing you because you took deductions that we don't think are correct. Well, now you've been doing this for 3 years, and now you have 3 years of penalties and 3 years of interest if they're able to find something. Let's talk about what could go wrong with my brethren on the billboards and the back of buses. If you don't have a lease and one company just pays the note directly because it's more convenient, it's one less check I have to write, guess what? Oh, so you're not separate. You don't have a separate agreement. So we should ask the jury to say that the real estate is in this company. When we get a judgment, we should be able to get that real estate as well. You can blur the lines with your company when you don't have that lease agreement. If you don't have a promissory note, if you just move money from one account to the other and you don't have any kind of documentation, guess what? If you're not respecting that you're taking money from one pocket to the other and you're taking money from somebody else's money, if you're not treating it like that, why should anybody else? And they're going to say, we should disregard the separateness of those two companies and merge them as one. Same thing with management agreements. Same thing without minutes. If you don't have minutes, how did you approve anything? The beauty of this, and I always think of this gastroenterologist that came and talked to us at Rotary. He was super excited about colonoscopies. I have never seen somebody that excited about colonoscopies. But what he was excited about is he told the crowd, Rotarians, this is the one treatment where you can find cancer and stop it before it becomes cancer. So this is kind of the same thing. This is the opportunity to create the evidence for what you want it to be before you have a problem. So now, what is it that you want the story to be? Well, I already wrote the story. Now they just have to read it. So that's one of the key things. Now, if we put the three bucket method into place, the first thing you need to do is check, do we have the right structure? Are we using LLCs in the right place? Are we using corporations? Does that make sense? Should we stay in the corporation? Should we do something different? Are we sole proprietors? That's a huge risk. So you want to plan for that separateness. Have we documented the relationships between these different companies? And you want to make sure you have a document that says, hey, I'm renting from you. I'm going to pay you this much money, but you're going to make sure these things are done for me. Even though you're here and then you're over here, it doesn't matter. You have to have that documentation so that you can have the proof if something goes wrong. If nothing goes wrong, guess what? Nothing happened. But guess what? Something will go wrong. When and where, we never know. But something does eventually go wrong. And if you're prepared, you're not going to have a big problem. All right, so things to consider. Moving parts bucket, you should use an LLC. If you already have a corporation, because that's how you got set up, I usually try not to get people to just spend more money on changing things. But there are times when it does make more sense to do that. Third bucket, an LLC or limited partnership. Same thing with the paper bucket. The limited partnership I would only use in the paper bucket when we're doing estate planning. And then the dirt bucket when we're doing a kind of syndication. Syndication would be more like we're getting a group of people to do a real estate deal, trying to put everybody's money together, and they're all limited partners. But we need one person who really can just run it because they know what they're doing. And so there's limited reasons why we would do a limited partnership. And reminder, as we're going along, if you have a question, go ahead and write it down because somebody next to you is going to have the same question, but they're not going to want to say anything. All right, so one of the solutions is having entity maintenance. You want to make sure you're maintaining this because imagine if you had a Ferrari or a Porsche and you never changed the oil. You never put air in the tires. You never washed it. Eventually, it's going to be a brick sitting in your garage or in your front yard. So you want to make sure you create maintenance. Your entity can have the same effect. It won't do what it's supposed to do. You want to make sure you document management contracts. There are times when we want to have those management services because we want to shift income from one company to the other because they're providing a certain service. And it may not have the assets to depreciate and take deductions. Then intercompany agreements. This is the biggie. Anytime you have more than one company dealing with each other, when you don't have arm's length documentation, it's very hard for you to prove what it is that you meant. Because the IRS is going to say, well, yeah, you're saying that right now because we caught you. Or an attorney in a lawsuit is going to say, oh yeah, because now you want it to be separate, but before you wanted to just pay the bills with one check. It was cheaper to do it that way, and now it's time to pay the piper. So we want to make sure that we have those intercompany agreements to provide that protection. Now, leases, purchases. Want to make sure, again, those are documented to see who owns what and what are those relationships. Define those terms. We've already talked about the minutes, but the other thing that's important with the minutes, combined with these leases and promissory notes, is those confirm both sides of the deal. So we have like double proof. Number one, here's the contract where we both signed it, okay? But did the company approve it? Here are the minutes where the company approved it, and here's the minutes where the other company approved it. I have 3 pieces of evidence. How hard is it going to be for the IRS to try to punch holes in this thing? I have 3 pieces of evidence that say exactly the same thing, like having 3 witnesses. So having that in place provides so much protection because the psychology is your IRS auditor is going to come in, let me see your corporate book. That's what they call it generically. And they're going to open it and they're going to see that you have things filled out. And they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to waste a lot of time because I'm not going to find anything. Let's move on to something else. Psychology of having a thorough binder is important. The same thing with lawyers. You get sued and you have to provide your entity binder and they see that everything is complete. You're going to have less likely for them to try to look for holes in it because they're going to say, this looks complete. I'm better off looking for other low-lying fruit. And you got to be careful. I had a client once that we were doing some estate planning for and said, oh, well, here are my entities just so that you can document them and put them into our trust. And so, okay, now this one was done by my previous lawyer and he's very good and this and that and the other. And oh, wait, great. Can I look at the binder? Yes, here it is. I opened it up. I promise you, I opened it up to where all the pages were all bond paper, blank bond paper. So even lawyers sometimes don't do a complete job, especially when this is not what they do. We are focused on estate planning as a protection, so we do this all the time. Okay, so a to-do list for all of you who have your businesses, make sure you have your minutes updated. Make sure you have everything that your tax return says that you're going to do or that you did. Make sure it's documented so you can prove that those things actually happened. You want to keep your minutes up to date annually. You want to make sure you've got at least that cadence of things. And you want to identify things that are missing. Hey, you know what? I moved money around between the companies, but I don't have a document to prove it. And one of the questions I get from my clients, hey, we have an operation where we have to move money a lot because we have cash flow issues, and sometimes this company needs the money, sometimes it needs to come back. How do I handle that? Do I have to be creating a promissory note every week when I move money to cover payroll? No. The solution is we do a revolving line of credit for the year. And so we figure out what's going to be the high watermark. Okay, The most money that's going to go out is for the whole year is going to be $25,000. Okay, we write a document that says, hey, look, you can borrow up to $25,000 and you pay back and you take more, but your maximum, like a credit card limit, is $25,000. So now we've documented that for the year. So the money can go back and forth because it's all under that one extended promissory note. So we're here to be able to help if you need these entity minutes, if you need this entity documents, if you need some of these intercompany agreements. So you want to make sure that you take care of these issues before the lawsuit. Once you get the nasty gram from an attorney, you're on notice that there is a lawsuit coming. Any movement you make after that can be subject to what is called fraudulent transfers. Now, fraudulent transfers is not that you're committing fraud. It is a mechanism for the court to be able to say, hey, you knew that if you moved this out at this time, that you could have to pay, that your creditor could not take it. Well, that's where we would be forced to move everything back. The court could make you move the money back so that they can collect it. You also want to make sure your agreements are in place before there's a lawsuit. And you want to make sure that you're in a better negotiating position. So if all there is in your moving parts bucket is computers, desks, chairs, but the real estate is separate and they sue, it may say, you know what? I'll just take the insurance because that's all there is. I don't want to go and try to get another $500 by selling all your computers and desks for fire sale prices. So it puts you in a much better negotiating position to say, well, take the insurance and go, stop bothering me. So you want to also consider these other things. Sometimes I've had clients say, oh, great, so now I can just cancel my insurance since I have this entity. Nope, you don't want to do that because for liability insurance, there's two very big things that are very important. One is you want to be a good corporate citizen. You want to make sure that if you or your employees or your company did something to hurt somebody, and you want to make sure there is a way to make it right. That's what the insurance is there for. Secondly, you want somebody to pay the attorney to represent you if you're in a lawsuit, and especially if it's a frivolous lawsuit, if it's a slip and fall, if it's a made-up case, you want to make sure you're not stuck with the attorney bill. Because for a good attorney, you could easily get to $100,000 before you even get to trial. So you want to make sure that the insurance company is writing the check and not you. So that's one of the big things with liability insurance. Life insurance, that's another thing that's important for estate tax protection if you have a taxable estate. Also, we use life insurance a lot with buy-sell agreements. So if you are in a partnership, you may really like and get along well with your partner because you guys know your business. They do one part, you do the other, and together you guys make a lot of money. But your partner's wife or husband maybe doesn't know anything about the business. They have their own career. They're not going to want to do anything in the business. And if your partner dies, you may be stuck with that person owning half the company. If you have a buy-sell agreement, you can use life insurance to buy their shares out. The surviving spouse probably doesn't want to be in the business either. They'd rather have cash so they can do their own thing. So that's one of the big uses for life insurance. Then health insurance. You want to make sure you also have health insurance because that's a risk to you personally. If you are ill and you can't work or you don't get treatment because you don't have money or you don't have insurance coverage, and all of a sudden things get worse. And a lot of times things get worse fast. And now you can't go to work, you can't produce, you don't have income. It's a cascade that's not something you want to go through. Also, don't forget, you want to make sure you have a way to pass on your assets. All of the stuff that you work for, guess what? Everyone in this room, don't take it badly, because it's just the truth, we're all going to die. I'm not saying right now. It's not supposed to sound so ominous. But everybody's going to die. That's a 100% fact. So that being said, you want to make sure you plan for what's going to happen next. So one of the things that we recommend is using trust. Trust, avoid the probate court, avoid publicity. They make things go a lot smoother because we don't have that process to go through. You can also use it to keep life insurance out of your estate. Another common instrument that we use, and it's foundational, we use it in almost all of our estate plans, is a will. Now, a will is great. It's very basic. It says who gets what, who's in charge of doing it, but its simplicity ends there. Because to make it work, first you got to die, and then your heirs have to take the will to probate and go through that court process, which is not cheap. Right now, our fees for doing a probate, if it's straight up and no arguments, is $10,000 plus filing fees. So it's expensive. It's a lot more expensive than doing a trust. It's a lot more expensive than doing anything else. All right, so 3-bucket method review. Okay, what do we talk about? You want to make sure you act before there's a problem. So preventative is the key. You want to create the right entity structure. You want to make sure you don't have everything all in one entity. That has a huge risk. You want to make sure you have sufficient insurance in place to make sure that you're protected, that you're doing the right thing, and that somebody else is paying the lawyers. You want to have that entity maintenance, like the car. You've got to change the oil, and if you don't, bad things happen. And you want to make sure you get legal advice from the right people. Okay? A board certified estate planning attorney is somebody who's very knowledgeable about entities and the structures for providing the asset protection and passing on your assets to your next generation. Now, if this has been helpful, here's a QR code for our podcast. I just recorded 9 new episodes, so they should be starting to come into play. We're also starting a Spanish version, so those of you who prefer to get your podcast in Spanish. Now, to contact me, here's my contact information. So I saw a lot of phones coming up. So right now is the time to really go ahead and take that picture. We have an office here in Laredo on Del Mar Boulevard. We also have another office in New Braunfels. So if you want to go up to Krause's and have a beer and then come over, or vice versa, we're like 5 blocks away. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. And now is the time for questions. So let's hear the questions. Oh, perfect. So I think we have a hand up over there. Oh, this one. Okay, here you go. They're recording. So I know what that's like because I go to a conference every quarter, and even though we can hear in the room, it's being recorded so we can see the video later. So I don't know if there's no video, is there? Or yes. Oh, awesome. I feel like I got Big Brother. But something you guys should consider is catch mics, because you can throw this little foam box around and it's got a mic inside. Anyway, so who's got the first question? Yes, sir.
Hi, my question is.
Ma'am, sorry. I can't see.
My question is there like a fee for like new starting companies, like go through your company? Like, is it a year fee? Like, because I know it's not just one-time visit. Like, it's like a constant. Is it like a year thing, or is it just like every time you go, you pay?
Right. So let me kind of give you the skinny on that. So when we create the entity, we have a flat fee to create it. So we set you up with everything except your tax ID, because you need to go to your CPA and make sure they are involved, or your bookkeeper or your accountant. Make sure they're covering the tax side, not just the legal side. So that's one fee that we charge. Your accountant will charge you another fee. We provide a subscription service or you could pay a regular monthly payment. And we reach out to you. We provide you with a lot of benefits there. You get a monthly, more or less every 10 months, 10 episodes a year magazine. It's called Business Minder. You also will get a video series of videos that I prepare and provide information on different business related topics. You also get 10% discount on all your future legal needs. So we do have a subscription. This includes doing your minutes for that company. So yes, there is an additional fee, but it includes it takes care of you throughout the year. It's not very expensive for the monthly service.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Next question. Okay, remember that the question that you're too shy to ask, your neighbor's also being too shy.
My question is, can you be the only person in an LLC? Like if you have your small business and it's only you, yourself, and I?
Yes. Sorry, that was yes, you can do a sole member LLC. That's really one of the neat things about the LLC is you can create an LLC and no, but it could be. So you could be a sole member LLC. So I'm going to give you the LLC structure for the state doesn't change. It's the same thing, but you're the only shareholder. So now you got a choice. Okay. Do I do a disregarded entity, meaning I'm not going to file I'm not going to file a federal income tax return. I'm going to just put that on my Schedule C or Schedule E, depending on what your business is. I don't do tax returns, so if I got the numbers right for those accounting majors, I'm sorry. But if you decide, you know what, I think I'd rather be a corporation. You can check a little box on a form and become a corporation. Or if you say, well, I'd rather be an S Corp because I like the tax benefits the CPA told me and I heard something on a YouTube video that S Corp was the way to go, then you can do that. The only thing you can't do as a single person is be a partnership. But if you're married, you can be, I'm married, I'm not soliciting you. So, no, but if you're married, my wife will eventually see this, I bet, if it's being recorded. So don't get any, yes. So you know my wife. Everybody knows my wife. So the point is, if you're a married couple, you can be a disregarded entity. You can be a partnership. You can be a C Corp or you can be an S Corp. So being married has its privileges. You can do all of those different things. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I saw a hand here. Yes.
I have two questions, actually.
Oh, okay.
One is tying to that. What if we're not married and we have no interest in getting legally married? We're together, but I don't want to marry him.
Okay.
But we're going into business together.
Okay.
How would I protect myself?
Okay. So
That's an excellent.
So the other question that you're not asking is, could we be a disregarded entity? Only if you're going to be filing, like if you're married, but then you're going to be married. So that's one thing. I'm gonna go a little off the tangent. So if you don't want to be married, you need to be very clear that you're not married. Are you living together?
Yes.
You have kids together?
Yes.
Okay, but you don't want to be married.
No.
Okay. You might already be married.
Yeah, but
There's a thing called common law.
Yeah.
So if you cohabitate,
Mhm.
check. If you hold out to the public as being married,
Mhm.
you just very clearly said, we ain't married.
No.
I don't want to be married.
No.
So that's a defense. And there is documentation that you intended to be married. So if those three things make you common law married.
Okay.
So I would need more evidence. You got one, so you got to be careful.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I recommend to my clients in that situation is to have a cohabitation agreement. So that's an agreement that says, hey, look, we're going to live together. We're going to do all the stuff that people do when they live together, but we're not married. We're not going to get married unless we actually get married. If we actually get married, then we'll be considered married. But until then, we both agree that we're not married.
Yeah.
Even
like
if we
a
don't
contract.
accidentally, even if we, contract.
Because let's say, like we do everything separate, financial, everything is separate. Nothing gets, so everything is separate.
Yeah.
And we have no interest in.
One of you use a paper bucket, one of you use a moving parts bucket.
Yes. Okay, so we would do like a contract.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that was my first
Question
question.
number one.
The second question is, I have an LLC.
Okay.
And you went into the rental properties. I have 3 rental properties.
Okay.
But they're under personal.
Okay.
Like, so if the LLC gets sued, my rental properties would be affected?
Okay, let me ask you a question. What does the LLC do? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
It's an insurance agency.
Okay. So if the insurance company gets sued, your rental properties are protected unless you're the insurance agent and they get you.
Yes.
You're the agent of the company, your real estate could be at risk.
So would you recommend doing a separate LLC for the properties themselves?
Would do a separate series LLC and do 3 series and put each property into a different series.
Okay.
You should not own anything as a human other than your personal residence.
Okay. Yeah.
You need to come see me for a lot of things. We're getting it on tape, so. Gotta move me up.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
All right, really quick. With your company, does it also help us get like the copyright for our logos?
Okay, so we don't do that, but we can hook you up with somebody who does.
Okay, yeah, because like when we got the paperwork back and we saw it, and yeah. So y'all wouldn't.
We don't do that. We're just not set up to handle those things because it's a very specialized field. You have to have certain subscriptions so that you can check very detailed descriptions. So the way copyrights work and trademarks is if you had a trademark that was for, let's say, for shoes, like let's say the Nike swoosh, it's so iconic that you can't use it for almost anything else. But let's say you wanted to use that Nike swoosh on fruit. Like, oh, this is swoosh fruit. Well, you might be able to get that trademark if it's a little bit different and you're using it for something else. So there are like very special rules, and then you've got to distinguish between things. And then that's kind of the attorney's job is, hey, you know what? I think this is different enough. We can make these arguments. These are the things that we're categorizing the trademark under. Nobody else uses that in this field, so we can use that. Then you apply that, and the trademark office could say, no, it's too close. Boom, you're out. Or they might say, oh yeah, this is a completely different thing. Great, we'll do it. But if it's an exact copy and you're just putting it somewhere else, you're going to have a very difficult time.
All right, thank you.
There is a local attorney, Sergio Davila, who does trademarks and patents. So Sergio Davila, and I think he had an office here at Mile 1. Yes.
Going back to the first slides, since you had mentioned formalities should be maintained to document everything, do you mean like with an attorney, like at all times, or?
Okay, so here, I'm going to give you an answer against my interest, which is the truth, which is what we're here for. So you don't have to use an attorney for those things. Now, you have to be real careful because there's a thing called unauthorized practice of law. So my answer to you is you don't have to use an attorney. You can do it yourself. So if you do your minutes, that's fine. If you get the notario to do your minutes, that's not fine. That's unauthorized practice of law, and that is very risky. So can you do it yourself? Do you have to use an attorney? No. Can you do it yourself? Yes. Can you get some other non-attorney to do it for you? No.
I just had
And
another
it's a
question.
criminal, actually a criminal offense.
How would you recommend like a starting business to go right away with an attorney? Wait.
Okay, so depends. It's a typical lawyer answer. I would skew towards having an attorney. Like we're not the cheapest in town. We're not gonna be able to compete with LegalZoom prices. But here's the thing: if you don't have the money to pay an attorney and a CPA to be on your team at the beginning, you don't have the capital to start a business yet. You know, if you don't have that, you need to hustle a little more before you make it into a business. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Bootstrapping is the way I built my business.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I can see that there's burning question.
Any other questions?
Bye.
You want to ask Mr.? I have a question, Mr. Dickerson. So I was thinking of starting like a private school, and it would be for profit.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like an LLC for profit. But to help with tuition, I was thinking, can you add an arm to it to where you can apply for grants? Because LLCs usually for profits usually cannot apply for grants, correct?
Anybody can apply for grants. You might not get it if you have a profit motive.
For profit.
But if the grant is really not for you, but for your customer, the student, you may be able to get them the grant that pays you.
And do you have to set up?
LLC.
Yeah, but do you have to set up a different, like an extension of the LLC, like with like a I was kind of reading up on it and said like adding like a nonprofit arm to it.
Right. So maybe I'm not understanding the structure you're trying to do. So if you're saying I'm going to have a nonprofit that's going to ask for money so that I can give scholarships,
Yes.
Or I'm going to have the operating company and I'm going to get people to give scholarships so that these kids can attend the school, or both.
Have the for-profit, but have also the capability to get donations or grants to support students that cannot pay the tuition.
Yeah, you would do two different entities.
Entities.
Yeah, and they can't have the same. In theory, they shouldn't have the identical management structure. So you need to make some new friends to be the officers in the nonprofit.
In the nonprofit. Okay, got it.
Guys, remember, I charge $500 an hour, and you guys have me here for free or whatever you paid for this event. So I would, if I was in your shoes, I would take advantage. And I'm also in a good mood, so.
My question basically is, I have a home-based business.
Mm-hmm.
I do pastries.
Okay.
So I haven't registered my business as an LLC.
Okay.
So being that I'm a home-based business, how can I register for an LLC and would my property be at risk, like with everything that we talked about?
Okay. So question number one is, do you own your house? Okay. Is your house your homestead?
Yes.
Okay. So nobody can take away your homestead except for mortgage that you borrowed money from to buy it, or taxes, property taxes. So your property is protected.
Okay.
So yes, you want to have a home-based business because they can still go after you. You still want to have your home-based business in LLC because they can still go after you.
Okay. And as far as doing my LLC, am I required to have any like employees and stuff like that, or it can just be?
It just be you.
Okay. I do file my federal taxes because I know that you were talking about, so on my, when I do my tax return, I put my business in my tax return.
In your Schedule C,
Yes, because I.
your 1040.
As a-
Right. So if you didn't want to change that, you could do an LLC, disregard an entity, and keep filing the exact same way you're doing. You just have to do one more piece of paper with the state.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. See, now that I said 500, ahora sí.
What did you say was the difference between the trust and the will? Which one's
Okay.
better or?
Okay. So I do lean towards the trust because guess what? Once you do it, you avoid having to go to court. Okay? But you got to just do it right. So the way the trust works is while you're alive, you put everything in this basket called a trust. When you die, your successor takes the stuff in the basket and doles it out the way you said in the document. With the will, you have a piece of paper that says, hey, when I die, this is who I want in charge and this is how I want it to be split. Great. While you're alive, nothing happens. With the trust, while you're alive, you run it, you change it, you move things around. With the will, nothing happens until you die. When you die, it has potential, but not until the judge signs the order admitting the will to probate does it have to be followed and can anybody do anything about it. So $10,000 later, you with the will, with the trust, you get it done a lot. You get it done without that other headache for your family. And if you're married, you get to do it twice. You get to do probate twice with the will. One for the first to die, then again for the second to die. Yep. See, she can do math really good.
If you have a will, can you move it into a trust? Can you do it in?
Yeah, because the will doesn't actually move anything anywhere. It's just a wish
Start with
list.
the will and then move into a
Here's
trust.
the other thing that's important to remember with the will is because we have to go to court if you have a troublemaker child or if somehow the grieving process affects your kids in a weird way. I mean, I don't mean it in a, I mean, yes, I've been funny. Let's say the person who's usually very calm and very stoic all of a sudden turns into a total jerk and wants everybody to suffer, like all their siblings. And if that person is the executor, they're I don't do family law. Let me preface it by that. But if the funds are still in the trust that you inherit in a trust, technically you don't. It's not your money yet. It's and so child support is a little different because that's a separate legal obligation to the kids. It's not part of the division of property. So I would say you probably will be able to access that, but it's going to be the Attorney General's office. It's going to be more likely to be able to get into that because it's going to be vigorously defended.
Hi, so I have a question. I couldn't think of the word right now, but you just said it. You said, executor or what? Uh-huh. So what's better, to be that or the successor?
The executor or the successor? So the successor just means you're like the next one in line if the first one dies or refuses to act or whatever.
But what if there is a will in place, but in the will, like one person gets left as a successor? That makes sense?
As a successor, okay. So do you mean as a successor executor or as the heir of the beneficiary of the estate?
I want to say the second.
Like the person who's going to get the stuff, not the person who's going to be in charge of doing the work.
Can it be the same person?
It can be the same person.
But what if it's the same person?
Okay, so let me see if I'm understanding let me see if I can paint the picture that I'm hearing. Let's say you got mom and dad, have 3 kids. One of the parents passes. Now we just have one. That person says, I'm leaving everything to Mijito because he was my firstborn and he's my favorite. And then they die. And the will says, I leave everything to Mijito. everybody else is going to be pissed, and they may say, there's no way mom would have said that, because she never said that you were her favorite. And even if she did, right, so it could create an opportunity for people to fight if they get nothing.
Yes.
And because they have nothing to lose.
Right.
And that just creates a whole bunch of problems. So with the trust, if you did that, everything's gone before anybody can do anything about it. Basically, well, mom left it to me. She left me in charge. I got everything now. Sorry, guys, you didn't get anything. If you ask, and if you don't ask, I'm not even going to tell you. I don't have to tell you anything. So the beauty of the trust is everything moves quickly, privately, quietly. If we do a will and it's like that, you've got to give notice to the heirs. That's part of the process. As soon as they see, I'm getting nothing, no. Something's wrong here. You manipulated mom, you.
Okay, so it's kind of like that, but not really. So my father has a lot of stuff, and he's going through a divorce.
Okay.
So then whatever's left was, it's just him. So then there's several of us, but I guess he's kind of like scratching names off the list. So then I got named the successor, but he keeps saying that there's a will. So then I'm like, that's me.
You say, make sure you do have a will, and make sure you tell me where it is so that I can make sure I take it to court and have it, make sure your wishes are followed. I don't care what it says. You don't have to show me. Just tell me where it is yeah, let him know. And so here's the thing. And this is what I tell clients when their parents disinherit people. I say, look, did you earn the money that your parents have? Did you earn the business? Did you buy the no? So shut up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why he's scratching names off the list, because people are starting to say my stuff, and it's like, what do you mean your stuff? Like, where was I when stuff got divided?
Let me get a little bit.
He's still alive.
Hey, let me get a little bit New Testament on you. So the prodigal son, basically what he said was, I wish you were dead already so I could get my stuff. And the dad said, okay, mijito, here you go. So your siblings need to stop wishing their dad would be dead and appreciate that they have him. And I say that from somebody who has lost both parents already.
Yes, I have a question. In the business structure,
Yes.
let's say that I have a limited budget to start my business, and I really don't know if it's going to be good or not. Can I start as a sole proprietorship and then transfer to LLC? And, as it goes growing, can I then later transfer to a corporation? So can I make that, or what is it like? Do I have to close the business and sell it to another entity, or how it works?
Okay, that's a really good question, and that's how a lot of businesses work. So let me first say, you can do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you can't do this, you can't do that. Other than anything illegal, you can still do it, except you're risking getting caught. And some people look good in orange. I don't know, but not you. Don't go with you don't want the orange jumpsuit. I'm being facetious. But let me get to the answer. A lot of people start off as a sole proprietor because, hey, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't even know if this is a business. I started making these wreaths, and my neighbor started telling me that they want one and that I should do more and that I should whatever. And now you start doing it and you say, oh, well, people are starting to pay me for this. Maybe I should open an account. Maybe I should make sure I'm paying taxes on this so I don't have the IRS come knocking on my door. And then all of a sudden you realize, hey, I made $50,000 doing these wreaths. Well, you know what? Maybe I need to start looking at what this can be, if it can be a business. So yes, that's very doable. It happens all the time. So when you start off, you may not have the budget to do something, but it's going to be like you're starting from a very home-based type of business. Whereas if you say, "Hey, I want to start a trucking company and I want to have all of these, but I don't have any money to do anything." Well, you need to get some money together and have some capital before you do this. Now, if you're doing a very bootstrapped, very basic business that doesn't have a lot of investment, then yeah, you can start that. Now, I'll say that, but remember, you have a very big upside risk and a very low, or very high risk and very low reward when you're starting out. Because it could be that you did this wreath, and I don't know why I came up with wreaths. So here, you give the wreath to somebody, and then they have an allergy to one of the things in it, and this kid goes into toxic shock, and then they're in the hospital, and then they get taken to San Antonio, and then there's like a telethon for them. And they say, "It's because of your wreath, we're going to sue you." And now they're suing you personally. And if they win, that judgment goes against you personally. Everything you ever do, you've got that dragging along with you. So, can you do it? Yes. Should you create the entity as soon as you can? Yes. But if you just do a couple as a hobby and then all of a sudden people are paying you, that's probably not worth doing an LLC unless you see that it's become a business.
Yeah, I was thinking like about giving a chance of 3 months to 6 months in to see if it works.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on what's the business you're doing. If it's something that's relatively low risk, I wouldn't worry about it, and I'd say, yeah, let's do that. But if it's something like trucking, where it's basically lawsuit magnet, or some other food product.
What about payroll?
Payroll processing?
Yeah.
I would do an entity before you even do your first check.
And what about a coffee place?
Remember McDonald's?
Yeah.
Got sued for like several $1 million because somebody spilled coffee on themselves.
I know. Yeah.
So anytime you have something that interacts with people and it can hurt them, like if you said ice cream, I would be like, well, that's less than coffee. But you want to make sure that I would still have an entity, especially because it might not work. And you don't want those risks following you. You want those risks to stick with the company. And if the company dies, well, you didn't die. You can keep on and do another entity.
And if they sue you, let's say that I am sole proprietorship, and then they sue me, and I just have only the basic, my house and some, saving and my retirement.
Mm-hmm.
We can go through that, because I know that the people, when they sue, they go through the risk too. Yeah. But if I'm not like I just have the basic, like house, the car and everything. So, and I know in Texas, they cannot take you that, and
Right.
not even the retirement.
Yeah.
So they once they sue me, they continue for life until the end of my life, or until I have money, or just because I don't have money, they don't sue me anymore.
Well, that's a judgment call on the attorney and the plaintiff. So let's say somebody sues you right now and they get judgment for $1 million, and you say, well, I don't have anywhere that they can get $1 million. They register that judgment. They win. They get a piece of paper they can't do anything with. They register it in the court. 5 years later, you go to upgrade your house. The judgment is going to pop up. Hey, you got to pay us our $1 million before you buy another house. Oh, well, I'm stuck with this house. You all of a sudden start making money, and you open bank accounts with assets. Now they're going to be able to say, oh, I have this judgment, and garnish those funds. So every 10 years, it can be renewed. So
I can open a corporation and never make a...
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, but but the problem is you're still on the human side, you still have that thing carrying on with you.
Okay.
It's a lot easier for a corporation to be your shield than for you to be shielding everything else from you.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Got a question up here.
We have another final question?
Got a question?
One final question over here.
So let's say I am looking to ship my product.
Mhm.
Is it okay to have just my LLC in Texas? Do I have to get like some sort of like a cross state type of thing?
There isn't a cross-state kind of thing. I mean, there isn't a federal entity. So each state has their own entities. So you want to, Texas is a great state to be in. It's got great asset protection. It has very low taxes. So you want to, as much as possible, have your interest here. So you don't have to have one in each company. It affects your tax reporting. You may have to report taxes, sales tax in other states. I don't do taxes, so I couldn't tell you the specifics, but
So this would more affect the tax part of
right.
it.
So when you get the CPA giving you the talk, you can say, "Hey, Dickerson said to ask you about this."
And I have one other tiny question.
Yeah.
So to create a trust, because I have assets for my children, Bitcoin, bank accounts, things like that. They don't know about because I don't want them dipping into that
Mhm.
right now.
Yep.
If I create a trust with all of that, do I have to let them know or can they find out?
You can find out when you die.
Oh, perfect. Okay. That was it.
Okay. How old are your kids?
27, 25, and 22.
Okay.
That's why I don't want them to know now because I don't want them to dip into
Exactly.
it because they're at that age.
Yeah. I was thinking if you had little kids, they're going to wind up in court and guardianship and things like that.
Oh, no.
But a trust is really a good way. And so what we do is we create trust for each of them. So whatever they're going to get, they get in a trust. So if they pick the wrong spouse, it stays intact. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
We have worked for
Mhm.
what we have here.
Right.
Even when we went back home, when we were back home. So Jeffy the other day was like, "Oh, we need one more house to leave for each kid." And yo, no, I'm not gonna leave them anything. Am I being?
So again, it's your stuff, and if you bounce your last check, that's great because you enjoyed every penny of your life. So it's your money. You've educated your kids. Legally, you kept them alive till they turned 18. That's it. After that, it's up to them. That's not the way we all are. Some of us are a little more coddling than others. Some of us want to leave something for them. Some of us want to just enjoy enjoy it ourselves because we worked for it. We give them an education. Nobody gave us anything, so that's good. It prevents kids from becoming trust fund babies. So them not knowing is great. And if you want to disappear for a couple of weeks, go to Europe and enjoy some of that, more power to you. If did it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so hopefully you didn't give it to them already because you may have a duty to let them know if they have it. So if it's still in your name and you're under your control, you want to put in a trust so it goes the way you want it without court involvement. See Bitcoin, complicated.
All righty. Well, that's going to conclude. Any more questions before we wrap up?
Yes. Another question in the back.
One more final question.
I'll stay here as long as you want. I think they'll turn off the air conditioning.
It's really quick. I was just wondering because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Around how much, do the prices range for like an attorney for our business?
Okay, so it's going to depend on what we're going to do, and I don't give prices out in public because there's a thing called anchoring. So I can give you a number right now, and I could say it's $100. And then you come in, and it turns out that what you need is all of these other things. And then I tell you, oh, you need all these other things. And you're going to say, I know, that's fine. But it's $100, right? And I said, well, no, $100 was for this. You need all of these things. Another analogy is you're coming up to the mechanic and you're saying, my car's making a funny noise. How much is it going to cost to fix it? So we will be happy to tell you what it's going to cost once we open the hood and do our diagnostic to see what it is that you need. So I'm not evading your question, even though I am. I'm protecting you from not taking action because you get scared of a number. Instead, you come in and find out what it is that you personally need. And then based on what you personally need, we give you a quote personal to the things that you need. And then you decide, okay, yes, let's move forward. Or no, that's not a good value. I don't want to move forward. But it's up to you. And focus on the value, not the cost. There's a big difference.
Yes, I was just curious because I feel like many businesses, I mean, from like friends that do have businesses, I've never heard of anybody having an attorney, right? So I'm kind of like wondering what stops people from like going to one.
Okay, so I will tell you some of the things that stop people from going to attorneys. One is they're scared that it's going to be expensive. They're scared that the attorney's going to get mad at them because they did something wrong. Okay? The other reason they don't go to attorneys is because you have a lot of unauthorized practice of law. I had a client recently get mad at me, okay? Because their CPA, they took our work to the CPA and said, hey, here's what we did. We need to get the tax ID number. And the CPA, who they wouldn't tell me who it was, said, I would have done it for you for half of that price. And so me reclamó. Hey, you said, you know, why are you charging so much? They said they would do it for half the price. I said, for one, they're not an attorney. What they're offering to do is illegal. And you probably don't want to be involved with illegal activity. And they're probably not doing it right because we fix a lot of legal Zoom documents and we fix a lot of documents that are done by other attorneys who claim they know what they're doing. So those are two of the reasons that come to mind immediately as to why people don't go to attorneys. And some attorneys are jerks and people think they're all jerks, but we're not. Hopefully you guys see that I'm not a jerk. On the other hand, you may think my humor is not that good, so may not be a good fit.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Are we done?
Yes.
Last call.
Last call for questions. Last call for questions.
Okay. Got one from the front row. Like, stop it, Dickerson. We want to go home.
Sorry. But my biggest question is when I started my LLC, I was stupid, right? So
It was actually smart that you did it. Maybe the way you set it up, and then if you haven't gotten sued yet, you're okay. But anyway, go ahead, tell me.
Right. So
Got sued.
I did not get sued, but it might be something around this. So I started my LLC with a business partner who is inactive in the business. So I did try buying out this business partner, which he declined. So I created another LLC with the similar name and the same business idea. I guess my question would be, like, are there any legal issues that I might run into?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Right.
So your partner is going to basically say you are usurping the business opportunities, number one, because you're partners, you have a duty to each other. Number two, and it's the exact same business. Number two, it has a very similar name, so it's very easy to confuse people and funnel them this other way. So those are two big risks. If you don't make any money, it's not going to be an issue. If you start making money, it's going to be an issue. So ideally, what you want to do is say, hey, look, I don't want to be your partner. I want to withdraw from this company. And you shut that down. And then you just stay with your business. That's one option. And now that may cost you giving up your shares. But, you know, one of my rules is no unnecessary partnerships. And so I'll share, one of my best friends and I started this company. We're out having a few beers and we said, at these Volkswagen vans. Decided, man, what a better thing to do than out of a Volkswagen van sell T-shirts. But we created an LLC. We got T-shirts printed. We went one afternoon and hung out in front of my office and sold like 3 T-shirts. Now he's a doctor and I'm a lawyer. And after that, we realized, you know, maybe we shouldn't come up with business ideas when we're so and neither admit nor deny. Probably do. So anyway, we would need to kind of see the specifics, but you are at risk because your partner could come back and basically say, everything you did over there needs to come into this business and half of that is mine.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody wants to go home, so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dickerson, for joining us in the Small Business Incubator. Wasn't that an amazing lecture? Did we all get our questions answered? Yes. Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, and for imparting knowledge with our students here today.
Great.
Yes.
And nobody fell asleep.
Nobody fell asleep. Our Small Business Incubator continues on Tuesday online with Platt Pony Productions, so make sure to hop on for that next Tuesday. Thank you so much, JMD Dickerson Law Firm. Mr. Dickerson, thank you again for your time.
All right, thank you.